Lauren from Broadway World Raleigh, and I'm here with the cast of The Miracle Worker. Seed Art Chair is doing The Miracle Worker here at the Borden House in the middle of Fletcher Park. And I'm here with Heather Strickland, who plays Annie Sullivan, Havana Bloom, who plays Helen Keller, and Dustin Britt, who is the director of this production. Dustin, let me start with you. This is an immersive production, which may be a little bit different than what audiences are used to. So talk to me about the immersive experience versus maybe the traditional experience that people might think of when they see The Miracle Worker.
So when you typically see The Miracle Worker, you tend to get kind of this lovely, distant Little House on the Prairie kind of vibe. You sit, you have your popcorn and your glass of wine is what we do now at the theater, and you can kind of have an appropriate distance. And the play will move you because it's an amazing story. But here it's very different because we're bringing you into the yard and into the house and into the actual living room where the family lives. And this house looks very much like a late 19th century home would have looked at the time, except we have air conditioning. So that's like the best. That's the thing we can offer that's a little, not quite as immersive, but it's much more comfortable. So the difference being is that you get to connect with the characters on a much more intimate way because, they're this close to you. So to see the emotions that are being carried out and to see these interactions and to be so close to it, the actors can't hide anything. Nothing can be hidden. Everything's completely honest and there in front of you. And living in the outside world and the inside world of the family, it's very different because you're not going to see crew running around. You're not going to see any kind of tech. Basically what you're going to see is what would have been here.
And what are some of the challenges in blocking a production that's, I hear directors say, oh gosh, I had such a challenge because it's a 3/4 stage. This is like a 360-degree stage. So talk to me a little bit about the challenges of directing a show in this kind of immersive environment.
Yeah. So it's spherical. It's not even just in the round. It's in the world. So the challenge is you don't have necessarily the conveniences of a bathroom right next door. Like some of those logistical things you don't realize till you're out here. Oh, there we have to figure out things like that. The weather can be something. The other day we rehearsed in a little bit of rain for about an hour and a half, but we didn't go anywhere. We still rehearsed. So dealing with just the outside kind of stuff can be challenging. The challenge inside is that we're trying to fit 30 audience members, which is easy out here. And it's even easy in the larger living room. But when we want to go into some of the smaller rooms, like the dining room scene, to stage the big dining room breakfast brawl that these two have in an actual dining room with 30 audience members sitting around the perimeter of the room is very different from where you have an entire stage and you're safely away from your audience. So space is a challenge, and the biggest challenge is that we're not blocking the show in the house. We're not going to be in the house to rehearse until the week of the show. We're blocking it at her house. We're blocking it at Havana's family's house, which is a terrific space to work in, but it's definitely not the same as being in here. So transferring it in there is going to be exciting and really hard.
And Heather, you are a seasoned performer yourself. You've directed shows, you've been in shows. So what are the challenges? You play Annie Sullivan. That's a challenging role all by itself. But what are the challenges in taking on a role like that in this kind of environment?
Sure. Yeah, so, you mentioned the role is challenging for a number of reasons. I think some of the greatest pressure that I feel as an actor in this role is Annie was a real person, and we are bringing somebody's very real story to life, and I've never played somebody that was actually a real person before. So understanding her story and what she went through, understanding her childhood, which was not a happy childhood growing up, and being as true to that as I possibly can, and also holding on to the legacy. She certainly has created ripples throughout history and has inspired so many, and it's carrying the weight of all of that. Of now, I'm one of those ripples that will continue to tell that story. And then you add in kind of, theater is immersive inherently. All theater should be immersive because the audience is there experiencing human emotion with the actors as they are out experiencing it themselves. But then when your audience is 2 feet away from you versus 40 feet away from you, that's just intensified. And there's a little bit of improv that's going to come into play. As Dustin said, we will not rehearse inside the actual space until very, very close to the opening. So we don't know if that piece of egg during our breakfast fight is going to fly off and hit an audience member, potentially a plate. Maybe there's going to be a splash zone. So there's going to be things that are just going to happen that we're going to have to deal with, and our audience is going to deal with it with us.
Which makes it kind of cool. Was there anything, you mentioned Annie Sullivan as a real person, was there anything in researching her that surprised you about her that maybe most people don't know about her? We know her as Helen Keller's teacher, as her kind of companion for 49 years. She really helped her throughout her life, but anything surprising?
Well, she's so revered now as this incredible teacher, and the only person she taught was Helen. I mean, she taught one human being, and I find that so startling, especially these days, because she did end up making such an impact in so many different worlds, but she didn't set out to do that. She never set out to change the world. She set out to change one person's life, and that created the legacy that is this incredible teacher of Annie Sullivan. And I also think it's really important to acknowledge what she got from Helen as well. You mentioned that they become lifelong friends and they spend the rest of their lives together. So that says to me that Helen also helped Annie heal and taught her a lot, as well as good relationships should, right? No relationship should be one-sided. So this isn't necessarily a teacher-student story. It's the story of a relationship of 2 best friends that ended up spending their whole life together.
Well, and don't you think this idea of changing the world kind of one person at a time is something that in itself is a legacy that I think is a wonderful takeaway for modern audiences?
Right, especially now. I mean, it's so easy for any one of us to look at all the things that are happening in the world right now and going, what do I do? How do I fix this? I have to fix so many things out there now. Well, maybe we just focus on helping one person, and that will lead. We have no idea how that's going to lead to helping others.
So, Havana, you have some big shoes to fill. You play Helen Keller. Did you know anything about Helen Keller before you took this role? And when you learned about her, was there anything about her that surprised you?
Well, before I got cast as Helen Keller, I had read a book about her in 2nd grade. It was a level 2 reader book, but I thought it was kind of cool, and it kind of told the same story as The Miracle Worker. So I asked my mom to buy me another book about her, and she did. Yeah, and
so what did you learn in the books that kind of was interesting to you?
Well, I thought it was really interesting that she was able to go to a regular college instead of a college that was special for blind people and deaf people.
She was pretty special. What is there like a best part about playing this role?
I just think it's really fun.
You just like theater.
Yeah, I just like theater.
Is there a worse part about playing this role?
Well, yeah, there is that. I have to remember a lot of blocking and a lot of fight choreography. And I have to remember to not make eye contact with anybody, which is really, really hard.
That would be hard. And you mentioned the fighting, so let's talk about that. I mean, although we know Helen and Annie grew up and became these great friends, their relationship was a little bit volatile. So tell me, how is it working on those scenes? Havana, you too, kind of weigh in here. Heather and Havana, how is it working on those scenes together? And I know Heather's done fight choreography, but have you ever done fight choreography, Havana?
Well, I've I've been in the Scottish play before. So I kind of did, because I had to get carried off stage.
And you were
Screaming.
together in that play.
Right,
Right?
yeah, she
Yeah,
played
she
my
was
daughter.
my mom.
in that one. There's a violent story to be told with
Oh
me and
my
Havana.
goodness. And Heather, how is it doing the fighting? I know you brought in
Yeah, Tara Nicole Williams is our fight choreographer for this show. Her and I are both trained by the Society of American Fight Directors, so we have lots of understanding of how to do this in a very, very safe way. Havana and I spend a lot of time checking in with each other because there is so much physical contact between the two of us, and Havana takes a couple swings at me. She stabs me one time.
She gets you too.
She actually smacks the crap out of me at one time.
Oh, yeah.
So, making sure that, we're working with a professional fight choreographer who is there with us through everything, marking through everything with us, and then we do everything really slow at first, and we keep each other safe, because that's our job, is to keep our scene partners really safe.
and it's part of the trust, I think, between the scene partners, but especially in a play like this where you guys are so close.
Yeah, and it helps that I've known Havana her entire life, so.
Part of the casting was knowing that both of them could do a lot of physicality, and having worked with Heather quite a bit and having known Havana, I definitely knew that they would be compatible in terms of the physicality. It was a huge part of looking at casting.
And I want to ask all three of you, I mean, we kind of touched on this, but Helen Keller was such an icon, really a feminist way before her time, a humanitarian. What about this play, even though this is a classic play by William Gibson, I was speaking to a director the other day who said, even though they're classic plays, in their time, they were the Hamiltons. They were the contemporary plays. So how do you make it contemporary today? What do you hope audiences kind of take away from this? What is kind of the underlying message of telling Helen Keller's story now?
One thing that, and I spoke to the cast about this early on, especially Havana, this isn't precious, and we're not trying to make it precious. This story isn't neat and clean and tidy and cute and Little House on the Prairie. And Helen, at this age, was not a hero, was not an icon. So while we all know and appreciate that, that really can't enter our universe as we're working on this play. She's really just a 9-year-old kid who's struggling, and a teacher who's struggling, and a family that's in crisis. So really, we've been stepping away from the kind of Helen Keller legacy and thinking about, this is just a family that is broken, that is trying to help their child, and they're at their wit's end. That's very timely. I've been a special education teacher for almost a decade. I've seen what families can go through. I've taught deaf children. I'm an older brother of a deaf child. So I've seen what families can have to go through in terms of finding the way to best help their child. Now it's almost, we have limitless options, it seems. Back then options were very, very limited. I think they mention an oculist or an asylum.
Yeah.
Were kind of the only two options, as they tried some science and they tried talking about institutionalization, and teacher was really the third option. Nowadays we have all these different schools, different modes of communication, but trying to step away from the big legacy and just look at, this is a small group of people in a house and they're in a crisis.
What do you think, Havana? What do you think is the message of the play, or what do you hope people take away from it when they come and see you perform?
I hope that they will understand that it's hard for people to figure out things and understand the earth when you don't have everything you're supposed to have. Like, Helen can't see or hear, which makes it hard for her to understand the planet. Like, she didn't even know that things had names. And so I think that people should learn from this that they need to be understanding.
And I think that is so much of what theater teaches us is empathy. So I love that you said that. A lot of the older people I interview say that exact same thing. So you are way ahead of the game. And Heather, what do you hope audiences kind of take away from this crazy immersive?
Well, I think Havana really nailed it. But I will also add the piece that Dustin was getting to about family. I mean, this really is about the struggles that this family faces and the search to fix it, the search to find something better, the search to find peace, the search to discover the relationships and the love that they know is there, but just seems so underneath all the daily struggles that they are up against.
Now let's talk a little bit about the logistics. So the play runs August, because we want to get people here, August 10th through 12th here at Fletcher Park at the Borden House. How do people get tickets?
So there are two ways. If you go to seedraaleigh.org/Miracle Worker, you'll find them there. If you go on Facebook and just search The Miracle Worker, you'll see all the details there and a link to tickets. If you're a Facebook person, that's the easiest way to go.
Wonderful. And people can bring a picnic, I read. There'll be a band.
So an hour before show starts, we're going to have kind of a porch band playing. They're actually rehearsing tonight. Banjo, jug, fiddle, double bass, very, kind of very bluegrass kind of stuff. So come an hour early, bring a picnic out here on the lawn. We'll have music, we'll be selling bottled water and concessions, and people can just relax and have some time to enjoy the garden. And then throughout the show, the band are actually participating. So we actually have music that's enhancing and occurring within the context of the show. And Heather might even sing a little bit.
Pretty good, pretty awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I will put the link on my Facebook page as well as Broadway World, and hopefully people will come out and see it. Good luck with the rest of your rehearsals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.